The great ship hung in space like a metal city. Its lights blinked slowly in the darkness. Inside, the main hall buzzed with worried voices. Aliens from different worlds sat around a huge table. Their faces showed fear and confusion. Ambassador Kang De-ho stood at the edge of the circle. He was the only human in the room. His black hair was neat and his suit was simple but clean. The other beings looked at him with curious eyes. Some had crystal skin that sparkled, others floated like colored smoke. They had never seen anything like humans before. At the center of the table, a hologram showed 3 planets. They were beautiful. Worlds with blue oceans and green lands. Millions of people lived on each one. But something terrible was coming toward them. Elder Christmer spoke first. His voice sounded like glass breaking. His crystal body was tall and sharp, with light moving through it like water. "The asteroid field moves too fast," he said. "Our best ships cannot stop it. Our strongest weapons cannot break it apart." The floating being called Wispinal agreed. Her voice was like wind through leaves. Her gaseous form changed colors as she spoke. "We have tried everything. The rocks are too big and too many. They will hit all 3 worlds in 6 days." Kang De-ho listened carefully. He had learned their languages just last month. The translation device in his ear helped with the hard words. He watched the hologram turn slowly. The asteroid field looked like a wall of death moving through space. "How many asteroids?" he asked. "Over 10,000, Christmer replied. "Some are as big as your Earth's moon. They move at incredible speed. No technology can stop them all." Other aliens nodded their heads or made similar gestures. The tentacled ones from the water worlds waved their arms sadly. The rock people from the mountain planets made grinding sounds of agreement. Wispinal's form grew darker. "We must evacuate the planets. It is the only way. But we cannot save everyone. Too many people, too little time." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Billions would die. Entire worlds would become dead rocks floating in space. Kang De-ho's communication device beeped softly. A message was coming from the human fleet. He pressed the small button on his ear. "Ambassador, this is Commander Park Sojin," came a clear voice. "We're receiving the emergency broadcast. What's the situation?" Kang De-ho looked around the room. All the alien eyes were watching him. He spoke quietly into his device. "Multiple asteroid impact, 3 inhabited worlds. The other species say, it's impossible to stop." There was a pause. Then Commander Park's voice came back, strong and sure. "We've got this." The translator device struggled with those words. The aliens heard strange sounds that didn't make sense in their languages. But they heard something else too. They heard confidence. They heard certainty. They heard something they had not felt in days. Hope. Kang De-ho stood up straighter. "My people would like to try," he said to the room. Elder Christmer's crystal body flashed with surprise. "Try what, human?" "We have ships that are thousands of years old. We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have minds that can calculate faster than your entire species. If we cannot solve this, how can you?" The other aliens made sounds of agreement. Some laughed, but not in a mean way. They were confused and a little sad. They thought the humans didn't understand how bad things were. Wispinal floated closer to Kang De-ho. "Young species," she said gently, "you have been traveling in space for only 200 of your years. We have been among the stars for tens of thousands. This is not a problem that can be solved with hope alone." Kang De-ho nodded politely. "I understand your concern. But humans solve problems differently than you do. May I ask for 3 days to try?" The room exploded with noise. Different aliens spoke at once in their many languages. Crystal voices rang like bells. Gas voices whispered like storms. Water voices bubbled and hissed. 3 days? Christmer's voice cut through the noise. "The asteroids will be too close. If you fail, we will have no time left to evacuate." "If we fail, you can still try your evacuation plan," Kang De-ho said calmly. "But if we succeed, everyone lives." A new voice spoke from the shadows. It belonged to Mordek, a being from the dark worlds. His skin was black as space and his eyes glowed red. What makes you think you can do what we cannot, small human? Kandeho smiled. It was a strange expression to the aliens. They didn't understand smiling. Because we don't know it's impossible. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Not knowing something was impossible seemed like a bad thing to them. How could ignorance help solve problems? Elder Christmer's crystal form grew brighter as he thought. What do you plan to do? I don't know yet, Kandeho said honestly. But my people are already working on it. Commander Park Sojin is gathering our best minds. They will find a way. You don't even have a plan? Wispinal asked, her gaseous form turning purple with shock. We have something better, Kandeho replied. We have humans who just said, we've got this. The alien council members talked among themselves for a long time. They used words that the translator couldn't understand. Finally, Elder Christmer spoke for all of them. Very well, humans. You have 72 of your hours. Complete control of the operation. All our ships will stay back and watch. When you fail, we will begin evacuation immediately. Kandeho bowed respectfully. Thank you for this chance. As he left the great hall, he heard the aliens still talking. Their voices were worried and sad. They were already planning how to save some people from the dying worlds, but Kandeho felt different. He felt excited. He pressed his communication device again. Commander Park, we have permission to proceed. 72 hours. Understood, Ambassador. We won't let those worlds down. I know you won't, Kandeho said. After all, we've got this. In the great hall behind him, the aliens continued their grim planning. They didn't understand that those 3 simple words, we've got this, were about to change everything they thought they knew about the impossible. The command center at Earth's orbital station was buzzing with activity. Screens glowed everywhere, showing star maps and data streams. People moved quickly between workstations, their voices mixing into a steady hum of conversation. Admiral Lee. Haiyan-Wu stood in the center of it all. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes. Around him, the best minds from Earth and its colonies worked frantically. They had less than 3 days to solve what the galaxy's oldest civilizations called impossible. Show me what we're dealing with, Admiral Lee said to the main screen. The display lit up with the asteroid field. It looked like a storm of rocks, each one spinning and tumbling through space. The biggest asteroids were massive, some larger than Earth's biggest cities. The smallest ones were still big enough to destroy entire countries. Over 10,000 objects, reported Dr. Kim Nari, the chief engineer. She was a small woman with quick hands that never stopped moving. The largest is 40 kilometers across. They're traveling at 30 kilometers per second. Captain Choi Dong-soo whistled low. He was a rough-looking man with scarred hands from years of mining asteroids. That's fast. Real fast. Most of them are iron and rock, but some have strange metals I've never seen before. Dr. Yoon Tae-min looked up from his calculations. He was young for a physicist with messy hair and thick glasses. The kinetic energy is incredible. Even the small ones would be like nuclear bombs when they hit. Around the room, more specialists added their voices. Communications Officer Oh Yoon-ji coordinated between different teams. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Sung-ho managed the military units. Engineer Lim Jae-hyeon studied the technical readings. What the humans didn't know was that alien observers were watching them. Hidden cameras throughout the station transmitted everything back to the Galactic Council's flagship. The aliens wanted to see how humans would fail. Elder Christmer studied the human activity with confusion. They have no order, he said too. The other council members. Where is their supreme commander? Where are their careful plans? Wispinal's gaseous form swirled with puzzlement. They argue with each other. In our culture, subordinates never question superiors. But these humans debate everything. On the screens, they watch Dr. Yoon Tae-min disagree with Dr. Kim Na-ri about gravity calculations. Instead of one person making a decision, they gathered more people to discuss it. Instead of following rigid rules, they seemed to make up solutions. As they went, chaos, muttered Mordek from the dark worlds. Pure chaos. This is why young species always fail. But something strange was happening in that apparent chaos. Ideas flowed freely between the humans. When Captain Choi disagreed with Dr. Yoon's theory about asteroid composition, he didn't stay quiet. He spoke up, sharing his practical mining experience. "These readings are wrong," Captain Choi said, pointing at the screen. "I've been inside. Asteroids like these, the density isn't even. There are weak spots, places where the rock is cracked or mixed with softer materials." Dr. Kim Nari leaned forward. "Show me where." Captain Choi's fingers danced over the display, marking spots on different asteroids. Here, here, and here. If you hit them in the right places, they don't just break apart. They fracture along natural lines. Dr. Shin Mi-kyung, the quantum mathematician, suddenly looked up from her work. She was a quiet woman who rarely spoke, but when she did, everyone listened. "That changes everything. If we can predict the fracture patterns, we can control where the pieces go." The aliens watching from their ship were bewildered. In their cultures, an asteroid miner would never speak directly to a quantum mathematician. A junior officer wouldn't correct a senior scientist. But the humans mixed ranks and specialties freely. "It's inefficient," Elder Christopher observed. "They waste time with unnecessary discussion." But Admiral Lee was seeing something different. He watched his people build on each other's ideas, creating solutions none of them could have found alone. The miners' practical knowledge combined with the physicists' theories. The engineers' experience merged with the mathematicians' calculations. "What if we don't try to stop the asteroids?" Dr. Yoon said suddenly. "What if we redirect them instead?" "Redirect 10,000 asteroids?" Lieutenant Colonel Bay looked skeptical. "That would take enormous energy." "Not if we're smart about it," Dr. Kim Nari said, her eyes lighting up. "Captain Choi is right about the fracture points. If we break them apart correctly, we could use the fragments to change the paths of other asteroids." Engineer Lim Jae-hyun was already running calculations on his tablet. "A cascade effect, like dominoes falling, but in space?" Dr. Shin Mi-kyung's fingers flew over her keyboard. Numbers streamed across her screen faster than most people could read. "The probability matrices are complex, but it's possible. We would need precise timing and exact placement of charges." Communications Officer Oh Yoon-ji had been quietly coordinating with other human fleets during the discussion. "We have mining ships throughout this sector," she reported. Captain Park Sojin's battle group is 2 days away. "The research vessels from Mars can be here in 36 hours. The aliens continued watching with growing amazement. The humans were planning something no single species had ever attempted. They were going to coordinate dozens of ships across vast distances, time everything to the second, and execute a plan that required perfect cooperation between completely different types of vessels. "Impossible," whispered Wispinel. "The communication delays alone would make such coordination hopeless." But the humans were already solving that problem too. Oh Yoon-ji had created a network of relay stations. Each ship would have backup communications. Multiple channels would carry the same information to prevent errors. "We'll need to position charges at exact points on specific asteroids," Dr. Kim explained to the room. "The explosions must happen in a precise sequence to create the cascade effect." Captain Choi nodded. "My mining crews can place the charges. We've been doing precision demolition for years. The gravity manipulators from the research ships can help guide the fragments," added Dr. Yoon. "And the military vessels can provide the nuclear charges for the largest asteroids," said Lieutenant Colonel Bay. Admiral Lee listened to his people weave together a plan that was incredibly complex and seemingly impossible. Each person contributed. Something essential? No single mind could have conceived it. The alien observers watched this process with growing respect and fear. Respect because they were seeing something they had never witnessed before, true collaborative intelligence. Fear because they were realizing that humans might actually succeed. "They don't follow our models of behavior," Elder Christopher said. Quietly, "Their chaos produces ... On the human station, the plan was taking shape. It was risky, requiring perfect timing and unprecedented cooperation. But every person in the room believed it could work. "How long do we have?" Admiral Lee asked. 67 hours until the first asteroids reach the outer system, Oyunji reported. "Then we better get started," the Admiral said. "Send the word. To all human ships in the sector, full emergency authority. Tell them we have a plan." As the orders went out across space, carried by radio waves and quantum transmissions, humans throughout the galaxy began moving. Mining ships changed course. Research vessels powered up their equipment. Military fleets prepared for the most unusual battle of their lives. The aliens watched it all, still not understanding what they were seeing. To them, it looked like controlled madness, but the humans saw something different. They saw the beginning of the impossible becoming possible. "We've got this," Admiral Lee said quietly, and somehow everyone in the room believed him. Space around the asteroid field filled with human ships. They came from every direction, mining vessels with scarred hulls, sleek research ships with sensor arrays, and military frigates bristling with weapons. To alien observers, it looked like random ships arriving at random times. But there was a pattern hidden in the apparent chaos. Commander Park Sojin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Soul's Pride. Through the wide view screen, she could see the asteroid field growing larger. It still looked like a wall of death moving toward 3 beautiful worlds. But now she saw something else. She saw targets. "All ships, this is Commander Park," she spoke into her headset. "Take your assigned positions. Remember, timing is everything." Captain Choi Dong-soo guided his mining ship, the Iron Mountain, toward the largest asteroid. His crew of 20 miners had done this kind of work 1,000 times before, but never with so much depending on them. They moved through space like they were approaching any other mining job. "Just another day at the office," Captain Choi told his crew, though his voice was tighter than usual. "Except today, we're mining to save worlds instead of making money." His mining specialist, Engineer Park Jin-ho, checked their drilling equipment. "The charges are ready, Captain." These asteroids are bigger than anything we've worked on before." "Bigger just means more places to put explosives," Captain Choi replied with a grin that didn't hide his nervousness. 3 kilometers away, Dr. Kim Nari's research ship, the Curiosity, moved into position. Her vessel was smaller than the mining ships, but packed with advanced technology. Gravity manipulators extended from the hull like metal flowers reaching toward the sun. "Gravity field generators are online," reported her assistant, Dr. Lee Soo-jin. "We can create artificial mass shadows to guide debris, but the power requirements are enormous." "We'll have enough power for exactly 1 attempt," Dr. Kim replied. "So we better make it count." Behind them, Lieutenant Colonel Bae Sung-ho coordinated the military vessels. His ships carried the nuclear charges needed to break apart the largest asteroids. Each missile was precisely calibrated for maximum effect at minimum radiation spread. "Nuclear charges armed and ready," he reported to Commander Park. "Targeting solutions locked in." The alien observers watched this deployment with growing amazement. Elder Christmer's crystal body pulsed with confused light. They scatter their forces across the entire field. This violates every principle of concentrated force. Wispinal's gaseous form swirled with uncertainty. "In our wars, we mass our ships together for maximum firepower." These humans spread out like they're afraid of each other. But Mordak from the Dark Worlds was beginning to understand something. They're not fighting the asteroids like an enemy fleet. They're treating each asteroid as a separate problem that needs a different solution. On her command ship, Communications Officer Oyunji managed the impossible task of coordinating dozens of vessels across thousands of kilometers. Her voice carried across space, connecting mining crews with research teams, linking military commanders with civilian scientists. "Mining Team Alpha, you're 30 seconds ahead of schedule," she announced. Research vessel Curiosity increased gravity field strength by 12%. Military Unit 7, delay your launch by 45 seconds. The constant stream of adjustments and corrections sounded like chaos to the aliens, but every change was calculated, every delay was planned. Oh, Yunji wasn't just managing communications, she was conducting an orchestra of destruction and creation. Engineer Lim Jae-hyun made a discovery that changed everything. His ship, the Technical Wonder, had been studying the asteroid composition with deep scan sensors. What he found made him call the command channel immediately. All units, this is Engineer Lim. His excited voice crackled across the communication network. I'm reading metamaterial deposits in the large asteroids. These aren't natural rocks, they're fragments from some ancient alien construction. Doctor. Shin Mi-kyung's voice came back instantly from her mathematics ship. That explains the density variations. Ancient construction materials would have different structural properties. What does that mean for our plan? Commander Park asked. Engineer Lim's voice grew more excited. These metamaterials respond to specific harmonic frequencies. If we can broadcast the right sound waves, we can weaken the entire structure from the inside. The alien observers were stunned. The humans had discovered something in hours that their own deep space surveys had missed for months. But more than that, they were already adapting their plan to use this new information. Impossible, breathed Elder Christopher. They change their entire strategy in minutes. Our command structures would need days to approve such changes. Captain Choi's voice came over the communication system. We're in position at the primary target asteroid. Beginning drilling operations now. His mining crew worked with practiced efficiency. Drilling platforms extended from their ship like metal arms reaching into the asteroid's surface. They placed charges not just randomly, but at points where Captain Choi's experience told him the rock would fracture most effectively. First charges placed, reported Engineer Park Jin-ho. The rock is tougher than expected, but it has natural fault lines running through it. Dr. Kim Nari positioned her research ship where her gravity manipulators could catch the debris from the first explosion. Gravity fields are ready. When that asteroid breaks apart, we'll guide the fragments toward the secondary targets. The plan was like a deadly game of billiards played across thousands of kilometers. Each broken asteroid would send fragments, flying toward other asteroids. Those impacts would break more asteroids, sending more fragments flying. If everything worked perfectly, the entire asteroid field would break apart and scatter in safe directions. If anything went wrong, the fragments might hit the three worlds anyway, just as smaller pieces instead of large ones. Engineer Lim positioned his ship near the center of the field. Broadcasting harmonic frequency in 3 minutes, he announced. All ships, seal your hulls. This sound will travel through space via the metamaterial network. Dr. Shin Mi-kyung's calculations had shown that the ancient metamaterials formed a connected network throughout the asteroid field. Sound waves could travel from one asteroid to another through these connections, weakening the structure of the entire field at once. Frequency broadcast beginning. Now, Engineer Lim announced. Nothing seemed to happen at first. The asteroids continued spinning through space, looking as solid and dangerous as ever. But instruments throughout the human fleet detected tiny vibrations running through the field. It's working, Dr. Kim reported. Internal stress readings are increasing. The asteroids are becoming unstable. Commander Park watched her tactical display as dozens of green dots representing human ships moved into final positions. Everything depended on the next few minutes. All mining teams, prepare for synchronized detonation, she ordered. Research. Vessels, power up all gravity manipulators. Military units, nuclear charges ready for secondary targets. The alien observers held their breath, or did whatever their species did when nervous. They were watching the most complex military operation they had ever seen, conducted by the youngest spacefaring species in known history. 10 seconds to detonation, Oyunji announced. All ships report ready. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. Execute. Across the asteroid field, precisely placed charges exploded at exactly the same moment. The largest asteroids cracked along fault lines that Captain Choi had identified. Fragments flew in carefully calculated directions, guided by gravity fields that Dr. Kim had positioned perfectly. The first stage of the cascade had begun. But now came the hardest part, controlling where 10,000 pieces of shattered rock would go next. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the humans began to prove that the impossible was just another word for something they hadn't figured out yet. The first explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks. Massive asteroids that had been solid for millions of years cracked apart in seconds. Fragments the size of mountains flew in all directions, following paths that Dr. Shin-Mi Kyung had calculated down to the meter. Commander Park Seo-jin watched her tactical display as green dots representing asteroid fragments moved across the screen. Most were following predicted paths, but some were not. Her heart pounded as she realized their careful plan was starting to fall apart. Fragment Cluster 7 is off course, reported Oh Yoon-ji from her communication station. It's going to miss the secondary targets completely. Dr. Kim Nari's voice crackled over the radio from her research ship. Gravity manipulators are at maximum power, but some fragments are too big. We can't redirect them all. The alien observers watched from their distant fleet with a mixture of fascination and dread. Elder Christmer's crystal body flickered with nervous energy. The human plan is failing. Some fragments will still hit the inhabited worlds. Wispinal's gaseous form turned dark purple with worry. Perhaps not all the fragments, but enough to kill millions. We should begin evacuation immediately. But Mordak from the Dark Worlds leaned forward, studying the human ships more carefully. Wait, look at what they're doing now. On the tactical displays, something unexpected was happening. Individual human ships were breaking formation, moving toward the dangerous fragments that were heading toward the three worlds. Captain Choi Dong-soo saw the largest rogue fragment spinning toward the second world. It was a chunk of rock and metal, 3 kilometers wide, big enough to destroy entire continents when it hit. Iron Mountain to all units. His voice came over the radio, steady despite the danger. I'm going after the big one. Captain, that's suicide, Commander Park replied immediately. Your mining ship can't stop something that massive. Maybe not stop it, Captain Choi said, but I can sure change where it's going. His mining ship turned toward the fragment, engines burning at full power. The Iron Mountain was not built for speed, but Captain Choi pushed every system beyond its limits. His crew of miners worked frantically to prepare their ship for impact. All power to forward shields, he ordered Engineer Park Jin-ho, and prepare the remaining mining charges for emergency detonation. The alien observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Elder Christmer's voice rang with shock. The mining ship is moving directly toward the fragment. This is not tactical. This is sacrifice. Other human ships were making similar desperate moves. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Sung-ho piloted his military frigate toward a cluster of medium-sized fragments. Dr. Kim Nari pushed her research vessel beyond safe limits to catch more debris with her gravity manipulators. This is Research Vessel Curiosity. Dr. Kim's voice was strained but determined. I'm redirecting fragments toward safe trajectories, but my ship won't survive the gravitational stress. Her research ship groaned under the impossible forces she was generating. The gravity manipulators were designed for careful, precise work, not for wrestling with mountain-sized chunks of rock. But she held position. Using her ship's technology to save lives she would never meet. Engineer Lim Jae-hyun faced his own crisis. The harmonic frequency that was weakening the asteroids was also tearing his ship apart. The technical wonder shook violently as sound waves resonated through its hull. The frequency is working, he reported, his voice shaking from the vibrations. The remaining asteroids are breaking up faster than predicted. But my ship is coming apart. Lim, get out of there, Commander Park ordered. Negative, Engineer Lim replied. If I stop the frequency now, the larger fragments won't break down enough. I need to maintain broadcast for another 3 minutes. Doctor. Shin-Mi Kyung watched the cascade effect from her mathematics ship, calculating probabilities in real time. The numbers kept changing as human ships sacrificed themselves to adjust the trajectories of dangerous fragments. The cascade is working, she announced. But the success probability drops every time we lose a ship. We need every vessel to maintain position. Communications Officer Oh Yoon-ji coordinated the desperate battle from her command post. She watched green dots disappear from her screen as human ships were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. But she also watched red dots, the dangerous fragments, change course away from the inhabited worlds. Mining Team Alpha is gone, she reported with professional calm that hid her grief. Research Vessel Discovery has lost power. Military Unit 3 is ... no longer responding. The alien observers watched human after human make the same choice. When faced with certain death for millions of strangers, they chose to risk their own lives instead. Wispidal's gaseous form shimmered with something the humans would have recognized as tears. They die for people they have never met on worlds they have never seen. Captain Troy's mining ship reached the massive fragment that threatened the second world. At the last moment, he fired every mining charge his ship carried directly into the fragment's surface, then rammed his vessel into the explosion. The Iron Mountain disappeared in a flash of light and debris. But the massive fragment split in half, both pieces now flying safely past the second world instead of into it. Iron Mountain is gone, Oh Yoon-ji reported quietly, but the fragment has been redirected. The second world is safe. Similar sacrifices were happening throughout the asteroid field. Lieutenant Colonel Bay detonated his ship's nuclear arsenal inside a cluster of medium fragments, vaporizing threats to the first world even as his ship was destroyed in the explosion. Dr. Kim Nari held her position until her research ship's hull finally cracked under the gravitational stress. Her last transmission was simple: gravity field collapse in 10 seconds. The fragments are redirected. Good luck, everyone. Engineer Lim Jae-hyun kept broadcasting the harmonic frequency until his ship literally shook itself apart. His final message was almost cheerful. Frequency broadcast complete. The big rocks are all broken up now. Sorry about the noise. The alien fleet watched in stunned silence as the human casualties mounted. Ships that had been green dots on the tactical display winked out one by one. But so did the red dots representing fragments that threatened the three worlds. Elder, Christopher S. crystal body pulsed with confused light. They trade their lives for strangers. This is not logical, this is not efficient. But Morduk understood something his colleagues did not. It is not about logic. It is about something else, something we do not have. Commander Park So-jin stood on her bridge, watching her people die to save worlds they had never seen. Her own ship was damaged, life support failing, but she maintained position to coordinate the final stages of the cascade. Cascade effect 90% complete, Dr. Shin McKyoung reported from her mathematics ship. Fragment dispersal is within acceptable parameters. The worlds will be safe. The cascade was working. The asteroid field that had threatened three worlds was breaking apart and scattering into harmless debris. Some fragments would provide valuable mining resources for future generations. Others would create beautiful meteor showers in distant skies, but the cost had been terrible. More than half the human ships were gone, destroyed or crippled in the desperate battle to redirect the fragments. All units, this is Commander Park, she announced over the radio. Primary mission accomplished. The worlds are safe. The alien. Observers sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what they had witnessed. The humans had succeeded where the galaxy's greatest civilizations had failed. But more than that, they had shown something the aliens had never seen before. They had shown that some species would sacrifice everything for others, even for strangers they would never meet. The impossible had become possible, but the price had been paid in human blood and human courage, and somehow the aliens realized that made the victory even more remarkable. Space was quiet now. Where the massive asteroid field had been, only scattered debris remained. Fragments that had once threatened to destroy three worlds now drifted safely away from the inhabited planets. Some would become mining resources. Others would burn up as pretty shooting stars in distant atmospheres. Commander Park So-jin floated in her damaged command chair, breathing recycled air that tasted of smoke and metal. Her ship, the Soul's Pride, had suffered hull breaches and engine failures, but it was still flying. More importantly, it was still transmitting. Final casualty report, she said quietly to Communications Officer OEUN-G.OUNG's voice. Was steady, but Commander Park could hear the grief underneath. 13 ships destroyed, 8 more damaged beyond repair. Total crew losses, 437 people. The numbers hit like physical blows. Each number represented someone Commander Park had known, miners who told jokes over. The radio, scientists who got excited about strange readings, soldiers who followed orders without question, but the 3 worlds were safe. 12 billion people would see tomorrow's sunrise because 437 humans had chosen to sacrifice themselves for strangers. Send a message to Admiral Lee, Commander Park ordered. Mission accomplished. The worlds are safe. Back. At Earth's orbital command station, Admiral Lee Hyun-woo received the transmission with mixed emotions. Victory and grief warred in his chest as he looked at the tactical display. So many green dots had gone dark. Dr. Shin Mi-kyung's mathematics. Ship was among the survivors, and her final calculations confirmed what they all hoped to hear. Threat eliminated, she reported. 0 probability of asteroid impact on any inhabited world. Fragment dispersal patterns are optimal for long-term system stability. The alien observers aboard the Galactic Council flagship watched the aftermath. In stunned silence. For the first time in their long histories, they had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew. About spacefaring civilizations, Elder Christmer's crystal body pulsed with slow, thoughtful light. They succeeded, he said, as if he still couldn't believe it. A species barely 2 centuries in space succeeded where we failed. Wispinal's gaseous form had turned silver with something like reverence. Not just succeeded, they sacrificed themselves for others. I have never seen such behavior among spacefaring species. Morduk from the Dark Worlds leaned forward in his shadowy alcove. In our culture, the strong survive and the weak perish. But these humans, the strong died so the weak could live. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho stood before the Alien Council once again. This time, the Great Hall was completely silent. Every being present was trying to process what they had witnessed. Your people are gone, Elder Christmer said finally. So many ships destroyed, so many lives lost. Was this victory worth such a price? Kang Dae-ho's answer was immediate and firm. Ask the 12 billion people who will wake up tomorrow on those 3 worlds. Ask their children who will play in gardens instead of burning in asteroid impacts. Ask their grandchildren who will inherit living worlds instead of dead rocks. He paused, looking around the room at faces that belonged to species thousands of years older than humanity. We told you we had this, he continued. That wasn't just confidence talking. That was the promise of what happens when necessity meets. Human determination. The Alien Council members exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand that they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that treated impossible problems as interesting challenges rather than insurmountable obstacles. Wispinal floated closer to the human ambassador. How do your people make such decisions so quickly? Our councils would debate for months before attempting something so dangerous. We don't have councils that debate, Kang Dae-ho replied with a slight smile. We have people who see problems and solve them. When Captain Choi saw a fragment heading for a world, he didn't form a committee to study it. He flew his ship into it and stopped it. But the risk, protested another council member, a being from the crystal caves of Altair. The probability of failure was so high. The probability of doing nothing was 100% failure, Kang Dae-ho answered. When you're facing certain death for billions of people, a small chance of success is infinitely better than no chance at all. Elder Christmer was studying. Something on his personal display? I have been analyzing your species' behavior patterns. You do not follow any known models of rational decision-making. Maybe rational isn't always right, Kang Dae-ho said. Maybe sometimes you need to be a little crazy to do the impossible. The communication device in Kang Dae-ho's ear chirped softly. A new message was coming in from Earth. He listened for a moment, then smiled. Speaking of impossible, he said to the Alien Council, I've just received 7 new emergency requests from different sectors of the galaxy. Situations that your various species have declared hopeless." The aliens looked at each other with expressions of surprise and something that might have been hope. "What will you tell them?" asked Wispinael. Kandeho's smile grew wider. "The same thing Commander Park told me when the first request came in. The same thing our people always say when faced with the impossible." He activated his communication device and spoke clearly into the Galactic Communication Network. "This is Ambassador Kandeho of the human delegation. We've received your emergency requests. Our response is simple: we've got this." The Alien Council members felt something they had not experienced in centuries: excitement. For the first time since their civilizations had grown old and careful, they were seeing someone charge headfirst at impossible problems with nothing but determination and confidence. Elder Christmer's crystal form began to pulse with brighter light. "We would like to establish permanent cultural exchange programs with your species. We have much to learn from your unique approach to problem solving. Our scientists wish to study your decision-making processes," added Wispinal. "Perhaps we can rediscover what we lost when our civilizations became focused on safety rather than achievement." Even Mordek from the Dark World spoke up. "Our young warriors have grown soft from too much safety. Perhaps they need to see how your people face death without fear." Kandeho nodded respectfully to each of them. "We'd be happy to share what we know. But I should warn you, being around humans can be dangerous. We have a habit of attempting impossible things and then actually doing them." "Perhaps," said Elder Christmer thoughtfully, "that is exactly what the galaxy needs." As the human fleet began its journey home, carrying the survivors of the asteroid field battle, the alien species throughout the galaxy began to reconsider their own approaches to impossible problems. They had watched the youngest spacefaring species in known history succeed where their ancient wisdom had failed. They had seen humans sacrifice themselves for strangers without hesitation. They had witnessed determination triumph over overwhelming odds. Most importantly, they had learned the true meaning of 3 simple words that had no direct translation in their languages but which carried infinite possibilities. "We've got this." The phrase would spread throughout the galaxy in the months and years to come. Alien species would study it, analyze it, and try to understand the mindset behind it. Some would even try to adopt it for themselves, but they would always remember that they first heard it from humans, the species that looked at impossible problems and saw interesting challenges instead, the species that had taught the galaxy that impossible was just another word for something that hadn't been figured out yet. And somewhere in space, Admiral Li Haiyan-Wu was already assembling new teams to tackle those 7 impossible requests. Because that's what humans did. They heard impossible problems, said, "We've got this," and then proved that impossible was just another word waiting to be proven wrong.